Hello everybody and welcome to Casey's Garage. Today we have the Altima jacked up and we are ready to climb underneath it and see what we can find out about it. Well, first things first, we're jacking up the Altima. What we found was this bolt fell out of the passenger side. Now, if you look really closely towards the bottom, it is totally stripped out on the bottom. It's super flat right there. I don't really know how that thing was holding. And I bet this was the whole problem with why it was throwing violently to the right when you would accelerate, because upon further inspection, if we go underneath and look at this suspension right here, that is where the piece fell out of. You can look right in there, it is missing the bolt. The other two look loose, and if you look up there, it's got a huge gap. So I bet that's probably our whole problem. Now we've got to figure out why it's stripped and pull that off and replace it, or at least tap and die or something. I don't know. We will pull it off and find out. Okay. All right, on to the next one. All right, so because we're not going to be spending, I think it's about $250, $300 on a new subframe in order to get this car running, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut a piece off of the subframe right here. And what that's going to do is allow us to get to these bolts that are messed up. And then we're going to weld them back into place, or the nuts that are allowing the bolts to hold into place. And then we're gonna weld it back together. Now, it's kind of crazy to think about, but even just driving this thing home in order to make this video, I could have ended up losing a tire, and depending on how fast I was going, it could have ended pretty badly. So it's definitely good to check things out. Like I said before though, I bought this car sight unseen in order to make this video, but it was only $100, so I figured there was going to be some problems, but it shouldn't be that big a deal. So we're going to go ahead and get to work on it. First thing we're doing is wiping away as much crap as we can in order to clean our area. And really, it's not that bad. Like, it's definitely seen the undercarriage as the cars get a lot dirtier. Alright, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this polishing wheel here and we're going to take away the paint and whatever else we can't get with a rag. Now the reason for that is because we're going to need to end up welding this together, and it's a lot easier to clean it up now versus after it's two pieces. Now that we've got the area cleaned up, we're going to be cutting roughly there and there, and then obviously there and there. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to open up a spot for here and here, where if you feel in here, these two bolts that are supposed to be holding the nuts into place when you thread them in can actually go in. Now, once they're in and tight, it really doesn't matter. The problem is we can't get them in at all. And actually, if we can look, see if we can get a close-up shot inside of there. If you look in there, that was super loose and it is oblong. The reason for that is because of just the wear and where it was bouncing around, and that was causing a majority of our problems. And if you look in the other hole, it was starting to have the same thing, so that would have broken before too much longer, which means it was driven that way for a little bit before I ended up getting the car and before the people that had the car before parked it. Now, again, you could buy a car for $100. There's obviously something wrong with it, but the whole point of this video is to be able to take a car like this, fix the minor problems on the cheap, and be able to make it work well. Now, this shouldn't be too big of a deal. If you have a little bit of knowledge, it can go a long way to help out with this. What we're going to be needing to do today after we cut this is we're going to be welding this piece back together. Now, if you don't know how to weld, it's fine. I'm not the greatest welder. I'm definitely not a professional, but I do know a little bit about welding, enough to get this to hold. Probably not enough to actually pass a welding test, but that's neither here nor there. All we need to do is get this fixed. So this should get it fixed. Now, the welder I'm going to be using isn't even a good welder, so even if I was a fantastic welder, it probably wouldn't look good. What I'm using is just a cheap $100 Harbor Freight wire feed welder. It runs on 110 and it is flux, so it doesn't even have the gas to make it better. So it's definitely not going to be a pretty weld, but it should be functional, and that's the important part of all of this. Okay, now that we've got this all cleaned up, what we need to do is we need to cut a hole there so that we can get these bolts out. So we're going to want to cut here, here, and then down there and there. And the reason for that is because we want to leave just enough lip there and there so we can weld it back together. So we've got the guard off the cutter so we can get to the tight spaces without worrying about it bumping and causing issues. Now, for that reason, I'm going to be wearing welding gloves just so that if it happens to get me, I'm not going to like lose a finger or anything. So let's go ahead and get started.
Did we lost power?
Yep. Alright, look inside of there, we can see we got it cut open. It's actually really thick. It shouldn't be too bad to put back together. Looking at this, the bolts themselves actually look fine. I think if I get nuts that'll fit with it and then just secure the bolts back into place, I should be good after a tap and die. So that is good news, because that means I just have to buy new bolts, and that should be a lot cheaper. So we'll go ahead and do that. So here's the deal. This bolt right here is an absolute nightmare to find. Not only is it unique in its, with the bevel right there and the way the whole setup is, this this thread is totally different. It's not one size, it's not another size, it's right in between. It's like they made it specifically so that it's impossible to replace unless you go to the dealership to buy one. And the best part is, the Altima was made in '94, so they don't make this bolt anymore. Now, there are a few options I've found. The first thing is I could take it to a specialist, like a reverse engineer, have it totally reverse engineered, have them make me one, although that's going to be over $100 for a single bolt and I need two. Or I can get a bolt that is as big as this and then have it cut down to as big as this, and that's going to be $65 just to have it custom machined, and it's just super expensive. So because I've already got the frame cut up and everything, and it really doesn't matter, my thought, I've got to go cheaper because I can't bring myself to spend twice as much on 2 bolts as the car is worth. Like, I just can't do it. So I'm gonna find a bolt, I think, that's about this size, and I don't really care about this size. I'm gonna find a nut that's about this size too, and then I'm probably just gonna take a drill and drill through that super thick frame to make it this size instead of this size, if it hasn't already. From, if you look right there where it's super rubbed, actually, funny fact, that part's the only part that ever even went into the bolt. That's where it broke out of. Like, it kind of looks like it doesn't have threads there, but it really does, or it was supposed to. It did it one time, and now it doesn't. So it's just super messed up, and I really don't want to have such a thin thread on there anyway if it's going to break like that. I mean, I know it's made in '94, and who knows how long it's been broken, but it's 2018. So the car apparently sat for, I want to say 2 years, so let's say 2016, and who knows how long it's been broken, but I wouldn't imagine they would drive it for too long after it broke because it would throw the wheel violently. So I'm going to say maybe 2016, maybe 2015 at the earliest. So 22 years, maybe 21 years that the bolt lasted before it broke. So, I mean, it's not like it wouldn't work if I were to, like, go to the junkyard and get one, probably. But I really don't want to pull a used bolt and put a used bolt in a used place and then have to figure out the nut. That's a whole nother thing, because the nut, the welds broke on that, and I pulled that out anyway. So the big thing is I don't want to do it in a way where it might just break again, because for all I know, if I have to reuse that original nut, maybe it's partially broken there too, and it'll just break again. So I think, not only for money's sake, but for longevity's sake, I think the best thing to do is to go ahead and get a new bolt and a new nut that's wider, and it'll work better. Honestly, I just think that's the best way to go. Thank you very much for watching Casey's Garage. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you liked it, go ahead and click here to watch another video from me. Click here to watch a video that YouTube decides that you want to see. Subscribe! Also, if you like my shirt, go ahead and check out the link in the description to find my Teespring. You'll go ahead and see I've got hoodies, t-shirts, women's t-shirts, a coffee cup, and stickers. Whatever you'd like to do. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.